Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Power Breakfast. We like to start our week off with a little bit of inspiration, and today is no different, so we'll be delving into Inspiration Monday in just a moment. Of course, as always, we love hearing your feedback, so if you have a question or comment as we continue this discussion, you can go ahead and SMS 22422 or tweet at Citizen TV Kenya. Dr. Wale Akinyemi back in the hot seat.
Thank you.
Is it? I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking a little bit about addiction and delving sort of into that topic of substance dependence. And you brought with you a guest. Wanja, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Wanja Dongo. I have a story about alcohol and addiction, and I'm going to have the privilege of sharing it with Kenya today.
All right, so before we get to your story, perhaps let's define what addiction actually is, because there are habits and there are addictions. So it crosses over when you can no longer control or control your decisions.
And I think the point when if you don't have it, you have symptoms. I think that is a very fine line of knowing when this has crossed over. So somebody has the occasional drink here and there, but if they don't have it, it's not an issue. You're not. But when you wake up and you realize, I need this. If I don't have this, my body is shaking and all that, then you know you've gone into addiction. And it's not just for alcohol or substances. People can be addicted to all sorts of things.
The internet.
Internet, television, the sex addiction. I was reading something that a very high percentage of corporate leaders in America are going through some form of sex addiction or the other. So you saw all that was happening with this Me Too thing. Yeah. It's big. It's really big.
Yeah. When it comes to alcohol dependency, specifically with Wanja's case, it's a little confusing again to define that line between, because it's a social, it's part of our social gatherings, and it might have started off as just something that you're doing socially, and then eventually it crosses over. So maybe Wanja, you can start your story from the beginning. How long were you addicted to alcohol?
I was addicted for 15 years.
15 years. Wow. At which point did you know that you were addicted? Because there might have been some denial, in the beginning, right?
Yeah. First of all, I have to say that my drinking started from a place where I was raped when I was a virgin. And from that rape, I went on and I got pregnant and I had an abortion. And so because I had been born a Christian, I've been born again at 13 years old, and this was at 22 years old, I didn't want to share this with the world. I didn't want anyone to know that, that had happened. And so when that happens, your soul dies. And so my next option was alcohol. And I look at it that in the way that there is a history of addiction in my family, so it's genetic of some sort, but at the same time there was the element of the damage that was done to me by this person, and now I wanted to hide that, and I wanted to hide in alcohol because it felt the most comfortable place and the best friend that I can talk to without having to tell anyone what had happened. And with time that became something in the past that I didn't even think about. And so I just thought I was drinking and having fun. But when I realized that in about less than 2 years, I had to have alcohol in the office, and I had to have it in some place at some point at any given time. Obviously, I didn't think, okay, now I'm addicted. Obviously, that doesn't even come up. But I know and I believe that that's the time that the addiction actually kicked in.
So this was a daily thing.
It came from a social thing, and that did not even last so long. And I think from the genetic part of the family, when I started, I just went in like completely.
Do you know at what time you crossed over from the social. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
At what point did you cross over from social and then you realize, oh my goodness, I can't stop this?
Yeah, that's the time now that I wanted to have the drink in the house. And so it didn't matter whether there was someone drinking with me or not. I mean, I just could do it by myself. And that is the time that I mean, subconsciously, that is the time that I actually became dependent on alcohol.
You brought up the whole genetic factor, and it is a very big factor in addiction. In addiction, rather. I read a statistic that you know, if you have a history of addiction in your family, you're 6 times more likely to develop an addiction than anyone else. So that's also, you know, something a huge factor in all of this. When it comes to alcohol addiction, you develop a tolerance, right? You started finding that. Did you start find that you needed more alcohol more frequently and could consume larger amounts?
Exactly.
With little effect.
Yeah, and that happened very quickly because I would actually even go to a bar here in Nairobi. I would go to a bar, and I remember at one point I went with a workmate, and this was not long after I had started drinking, and I remember him being told by one of the guys, "Are you sure that you can afford her alcohol?" Because they already knew that I would take so much. So I know that there's a point in time that I was just taking too much, way more than anybody else. Because my body now, I think something opened up and something was just asking for it. At any given time, it was just asking for it. Yeah.
And you told me that when you did not have alcohol, you had...
I developed...
Talk about that.
Withdrawal symptoms of some sort?
As the years went by, a lot of things started being affected in my system. And obviously, the tremors were one of the signs that it had already really affected my nervous system, because it starts from the brain. And so at any given time, if I didn't have any amount of alcohol in my system, I would have tremors and I would be sweating, and I would just get agitated by anything, until it didn't matter where I was going to get it, I had to have some. And so for me to maintain that kind of life, I had to have it in my bag or in, you know, wherever I was, I had to have it, because the tremor part also comes with panic attacks. Like, I know I couldn't drive a car without alcohol in my system, because all of a sudden I would feel like I'm gonna die or I'm gonna crash. So I would even try sometimes and tell myself, I'm not gonna do it, and I would drive for a distance and I'm like, no, I can't do it. Actually, I would just start, like, you know, accelerating so fast, and I would just shake and sweat, and my heart would beat so hard, and I had to take off and look for alcohol before I could go on. So it goes to that depth of doing that. And then obviously my blood pressure would go up, because, you know, it weakens your whole blood system, because you cause your body to work so hard, because it has to keep eliminating this alcohol. And I also know that it had affected my liver to some extent, because I know that at any time when I was waking up from a night of drinking, I would feel so much pain right here. And since I'm a nurse by profession, I would know that that's the liver. And I would put a pillow there, you know, just to be able to get through the night. But then I would go on and drink. But when you drink and you have a liver problem, this is what happens. The pain goes away. So when you're drinking, when you're, you know, high and everything, you will not feel the pain. But once the alcohol has gone out of your system, when you have a liver how you know you have a liver problem going on? There's a way that it just hurts when there's no alcohol in the system. When you drink, then the pain goes away.
Isn't that?
Yeah, I know. Because it just causes you to drink much more. And obviously, I got to a point where I was having blackouts. And blackouts doesn't mean that you black out and sleep, and you can be drunk and blacked out and you're doing everything as normal as anybody else.
Wow.
I could be talking to you, I could go shopping, I could drive everything, but I'm blacked out. In the sense that if you ask me tomorrow what I did yesterday, I'll tell you that I didn't do anything. Or I didn't meet you yesterday, or we didn't talk yesterday. And you'll call someone during that blackout and you'll talk crazy stuff. And when they tell you we spoke, no, we didn't. When you look through your phone, yeah, you actually spoke, and for a long time. So there's that element of when you've gotten to that deep addiction, there's times you go through blackouts when you're actually walking and talking.
And that's where the term, I think, functioning alcoholic comes from.
Yeah.
And that's a very scary place to be, because you're continuing with your day-to-day routines. You're showing up for work. You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, but are still addicted. Maybe you can speak a little bit on that, because I think there are a lot of people who don't even know that they're addicted.
That's what I was going to say. I think there are a lot of people that right now think it's just, I just like to have a drink around me and all that. But, you know, something she said, which I think, if we're going to go to the root of this, the rape. And I think one of the things I've discovered, a lot of addictions, they start off to cover up something. It helps the denial process, you know. And I think we're going to really help people. One of the first things that I think we need to do is people who have gone through some form of abuse, who have gone through some form of hurt, especially in their childhood, instead of trying to suppress to a point where you're living in denial, it is very good to come out, look for a counselor, a pastor, or someone you can open up to and talk, and they can help you through the healing process. Because it is when we lack that we now need something to help us further suppress it. You know, I think that's very, very crucial. But going back to people listening to her story right now, I think anybody who is in that position of a functioning alcoholic, listening to her story, will be able to identify so that, hey, she's describing me. So maybe what she needs to now tell us is, what are the steps she took, you know, when you discovered that, okay, this is the reality. You know, how did you figure out what you need to do, and how did you get the courage to even take the step? Or was it that you were carried and taken there, or what happened?
Right, because 15 years is a very long time.
It's a long time.
And actually it becomes a lifestyle.
Right, exactly.
You don't know any other better life, and also the friends that you have around are friends who just know you when you're addicted. But what happened was, let me just say, it started from, because I was in the US, I was in California, and I invited my parents to come and visit. That was 2009, and they came between the month of April and May. All this time they had not known, you know, my lifestyle. They had not known what had happened to me when I was young. They had not known anything. But then they saw that there was something going wrong with me. And I do believe that when they came back to Kenya, they started praying hard. Not just praying, but praying hard. And I know my mom was fasting. And so things started now falling apart, completely falling apart, because I lost my job. Any car that I would touch, I would crash. I started being evicted from my place because I couldn't pay rent, because I couldn't keep a job. And then my job also started realizing, since I was a nurse, the job started realizing that there's a smell that goes on. See, when now your body has to take so much, with time you're able to cover up with chewing gum or toothpaste or swallowing mouthwash, you know, all those things, perfume and all that. But it gets to a point where it just goes beyond that. You can't hide it anymore. And so at the hospitals, the nurses would know there's something not right with this girl, you know. So it was going overboard. Now the high functioning was out of the picture. Now I had to have more to actually just maintain, and that is when you're just totally just walking drunk. And so when that was happening, when my parents, I think, were praying, things started falling apart. So I ended up homeless. I lost my apartment, I lost my job, I lost my car, everything. So I ended up homeless. when I ended up homeless, I remember there was a cousin of mine, and I needed to go tell him what was going on, and I just wanted to inform him that I'm going to be dying, and I just want him to let my family know why I died. But thank God that when I walked up to his office, and I was looking very bad, and I was smelling very bad. Obviously, you've been on the streets, you're not showered or anything, and I was still drinking, and not drinking from buying. I was actually shoplifting alcohol because I needed to feed the addiction. So I still had alcohol. That was not a problem, never was a problem. So when I walked up to him, he looked at me, and honestly, he hugged me and he cried. And for the first time, I was like, somebody actually cares. Because I was so desperate. I really wanted to die so many times, you know, during that addiction time. And so when I realized that somebody actually cares, that, you know, and he said, you know, we can help you. And him and the wife, and he asked me to go to the house and take a shower and drink something, and so that is when I actually went to his house, and then I took a shower, and I kind of started feeling normal, and I actually felt, I think this can be over. I think this can be over. And so I started now negotiating with my mind. Are we gonna live this lifestyle? Are we? But I was so scared to be sober. I was so scared because I didn't know how it felt to be sober. And the wife came, and we prayed together, and they were able to find a rehab center, which was a Christian rehab center. So they were able to put me in. And in 2 months, I was also addicted to cigarettes, you know. And so I went in for 2 months. And honestly, I have no idea, because they do it cold turkey. You don't get any medications, you don't get any, as in nothing. Nothing to help you get over your, what are they called? What do you, the withdrawals, yeah. Nothing to help you with the withdrawals. You know, when you're getting off, you do not sleep, because alcohol has always helped you to go to sleep. So you do not sleep. For the most part, I think I was awake every day for about 4 or 5 days, just staring up in the sky and listening to everything going through the night. And my life was flashing right in front of me.
And I was watching, because now you're unpacking 15 years of things that you've been repressing.
I know. I mean, it's like I was watching my life like a movie in the night, because it was quiet, and all I could think of is the things that I did, and places I went, and people I had, because I'd had so many people with addiction. You had everybody, actually, everyone. And so, so that time in that rehab, because you're just away, they just give you so much work to do. You work really hard. You study the Bible really hard. You pray so hard. And everyone who's coming there is going through some kind of addiction, coming out of addiction. And so with that time, I have no idea how the tremors went away. No idea. I have no idea how the smoking part disappeared. But I know that my chest was hurting so much while all that ugliness was coming out. It was a painful process. It was cold turkey, but so painful. But they want you to do it that way so that the next time you
remember the pain.
Know the pain.
Yeah. There are people who aren't as successful as you were, who've gone to rehab several times, in and out. That's sort of become, you know, a part of their life almost. And every time that they, you know, go back, they're saying, I'm not going to do this again. And as soon as you're out, you're back to your old ways. Dr. Wale, for people who might be going through that or feeling like, you know, I just can't break this habit, what's a good place for them to start?
One thing she said, which I think is very, very good, was that at the center they gave her a lot of work to do. One thing about habits is that you have to replace an old one with a new one. You have to replace a negative habit with a positive habit. And so what I would say to such people, no more, like I said, find help. You know, I am very, very passionate about young people and about things like this, and that's why I do a lot of work with young people suffering from such things. I learned a fundamental principle that even a dog wags its tail when it is loved. Another thing that happens to a lot of people, they've been so rejected and so condemned by society. They've been rejected, condemned even by churches, by, and that's not helping. So one of the things that we're trying to do is, and we've talked about a lot of times here with the young people, and even those who are not too young, who are going through these issues, reach out. My details are public domain. Reach out. She's also got a powerful ministry doing that. Let us start with at least talking. That's the first place. Talking. And then we will reach out to you in love and show you that, you know what, it's not over. She started at, what age did you start again? Drinking?
22.
I started smoking at the age of 6.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, it was the company you keep, because we had a gardener whose son was literally an armed robber. But, as a kid, those things were so inspiring. I remember there was a particular ad on TV which showed this lady smoking, and the way she blew out the smoke was just so fascinating. And I got hooked, and that went on for about 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that went on for about 20 years. So I understand these things because I've been there, and so I will advise people, reach out. You can't fix it yourself. That's a deception.
Yeah.
Reach out. If you don't know who to reach out to, we are here. That's what we do. Part of my calling is to love the rejected, and to make them realize there is hope. I have so many success stories of people that we've worked with who were messed up like that, but today who are back on track. So I think that's my advice. And then because you see, you need a support structure. If you're going to overcome that addiction, you need a support, whatever addiction it is.
Right.
You need a strong
because
support
addiction is a very isolating disease. You remove yourself from your friends.
Yeah.
You were telling us about getting to the point where you don't even need to drink with other people. You can do it, I can do it on my own, and so you sort of seclude yourself, to be alone. So I think, yes, having the right people around is also very important.
Crucial.
Yeah.
Because even when I tried to stop smoking, and of course, from cigarettes, when I graduated to other things and all that. And I remember when I would try to stop, and this thing, let me just tell anyone listening to me, you cannot stop it by willpower. This is not a willpower situation. Because I will say, okay, you know what, I'm going to stop. And then all it took was maybe for something bad to happen. I'm in a bad mood. I remember there was once I said, I'm going to stop all this stuff. Then I got robbed. And so immediately
went back to your
that
comfort.
was the support I understood, Or I said, I'm going to stop. And then my circle of friends are still the same. You told me something that I think you need to tell, that a lot of your friends died in the process.
Yeah. Between 2008 and 2016, I have 10 people. And I'm not talking about people I hear from out there. People who used to come and drink in my house.
Wow.
In my apartment out in the United States. They all died from alcohol-related issues. One guy I know, he just collapsed. He had seizure-related, alcohol-related seizures. I know a couple of them died from liver cirrhosis, and I know some killed themselves. When alcohol is a depressant.
Right, exactly.
And so you get so depressed. I know 2 of them committed suicide, and it's just alcohol-related. But I'll tell you the truth. The one thing that you go through the most when you're drinking is rejection. Everybody doesn't want to know what happened, why you're drinking. Nobody, honestly, the worst thing that I went through when I was going through the drinking was rejection. And that used to dig my hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's why the embrace of that cousin of mine made the whole difference, because I had not experienced that for many, many years. because the society is very unforgiving. And for the most part, like he has said, for the most part, to be honest, especially for women, I highly doubt that any woman just goes ahead and just decides, I'm going to start drinking and drink very heavy. Obviously, there are those who do social drinking. That is not even a problem to them. They'll have a glass of wine and, you know, it's not a big deal. But there are those who are really, really addicted. You'll see a woman leaving a billionaire husband, and you wonder, why would she want to leave a billionaire husband and kids, you know? And she's drinking, she's on the streets. You have to dig deeper. There's way more than what meets the eye. And I do believe the same case, because when I was at the rehab, obviously we were just women. We were allowed to speak. And I believe, for the most part, that is what allowed us to heal even more quickly. Because, like, say for example, the only people they brought to the rehab to speak to us is not somebody who had a PhD in addictive counseling. It's not someone who has never touched alcohol, but then they have degrees and degrees. But it's somebody who has tested it, tried it, gone through it, and when they would speak, they would relate with everything that you're going through. In fact, my change came from this lady who'd been in the streets for 13 years with a child.
Wow.
You know, running away from social services and everything. And she was so confident and so well kept. And I was like, actually, it can work for me. I mean, I can change. So the thing is, their experiences is what made us come out and speak out. But the society is so condemning. Like, when I've spoken about the rape, people are like, no, you don't go there. There's some things you just don't speak out. I speak out because I know there's so many girls. I have received so many emails and so many messages from women who are struggling. They're being abused by their husbands. And so the best thing they can do, get alcohol and drink and not feel it. They have been raped. They are being molested, because even the rape happens in a marriage too. And so they're being abused in marriages, and they're going through, and there are some who've been molested when they're kids. But they are unable to come out. So the only thing they can do, because when you experience molestation, abuse, or anything when you're growing up, it robs you of your self-esteem, and it destroys your self-image. So when you get even into a relationship, it's okay for a man to hit you. It's okay for someone to insult you, and you know, it's okay for bad things to happen to you, because in any case, you have no self-esteem, you have no self-image. It has been destroyed by someone who's robbed it off of you. And so when you're trying to get into other things to just kind of pacify, you know, your emotions and everything, then you're judged. So practically, you have nowhere to go.
Yeah, no one to talk to.
And no one to talk to.
When you talked earlier about being afraid of getting sober because you didn't know what that felt like.
Exactly.
So when you're at your 60-day mark and are leaving rehab, were you terrified? Were you scared
Extremely.
that, you know, these habits we might slip back into what you know?
Yeah. Actually, I was really scared, and people, okay, when I went in, I looked like a HIV patient because I was thin, I was skin and bones. I looked ugly, but they feed you. They make sure that you eat. There is no reason why you shouldn't be eating. So we were eating so much, I was triple my size when I came out. And so there were very sarcastic comments. Oh, she had the HIV, now she's pregnant. You know, very funny things were being said. And so the people who were seeing me and the people I was hanging around with, they're like, who is this person? I was so high on the word and on Jesus and everything. That's where I wanted to stay. But I realized I was actually separated now. I was separating myself more, because these are people who just know me as the Wanja who drinks. They didn't know any other side of me apart from that. Now I've come out, and all I'm doing is speaking the word and praying and going for fellowships and everything. And the people that I'm fellowshipping with don't even know me, you know. And so the ones that were in my life, I don't know how, I didn't think that they were not going to be there anymore. So they somehow just were fading off and fading off. And I didn't have a job. I was staying with friends. I was staying with a very big family, and it was frustrating. And I remember when I was invited to stay with this family, I was clearing the garage, and I remember seeing a box of wine. and some they had liquors, and I was like, you need to take those out of the garage, because the husband used to drink, and take them upstairs, because I don't want to see them there. It may be tempting. But for the wine, I didn't even take it upstairs, because I was like, wine has never been my problem. I just, you know, that's soda for me. So anyway, all the drinks were gone, and in about, say, I got out of rehab in May. In November of the same year, something upset me. Something just triggered, and I remembered the wine in the garage. And I went for that wine, 5 liters. I finished that 5 liter in a single sitting.
Wow.
Yeah. And I relapsed. And so I left the house, and I went to stay with some other friends. And they noticed, and they were like, you need to go back to the rehab. And I said, I'm not going to be a rehab addict. I refused to do that. And so when I got out of that place, I went again to the homeless shelter. And then there I decided I'm going to stay in a homeless shelter with people who are doing every kind of stuff. Obviously, I had nowhere to go, and I didn't want to go to the same home that had supported me with that. And in that place, I actually fasted and prayed for 5 days. And when I got back to the home, I got a job. So, and actually, I had just been praying for a job. So I got my life now situated, and I started now working hard towards my getting better and getting my own place. And yeah, so there was a lot of confusion. Getting into a sober world, it was a strange place for me, because I didn't know people that way. I only knew people through the drunk eye.
Right. For people listening to Wanja's story right now and thinking, she was a nurse, you know, how is it possible for someone who seemingly had their life all together to not know that this is addiction, to not deal with the issue? And I think there are a lot of people like that who feel like, you know what, I'm a professional, you know, whatever it is, field that you're in, there's no way that this can happen to me. What would you...
You know, like I said, first, it's the issue of we're trying to suppress something that has, whether you're a nurse, whether you're, no matter who you are, you know, we all have emotions. We all go through hurt, you know. And rejection is a big catalyst. That feeling of rejection, it could even be, it doesn't even have to be abuse. It could be something as simple as a feeling of, I don't belong. So, a feeling of, I don't belong, and then you now want to do things to show, at least to shine in an area. So you decide, you know what, I drink more than everybody just to show. So I do not belong socially or whatever in some area, but they will look at me and say, wow. So I think it's important to note when rejection is setting. And one of the things I found out about the spirit of rejection is that, number one, in my case, what happened was when I see people talking, maybe just talking over me, you feel they're talking about you. There's just this feeling of deep insecurity that they must be talking about me. Oh my God, what did I, you know, there's a feeling of deep suspicion. You know, you just suspect everybody. You're so insecure and all that. Now, when those signs begin to show up, it's important to take note, because more often than not, these are the signs knocking on the door. All right. So, again, I think being self-aware, you know, man, know thyself, understand yourself, and when you see these things begin to show up, look for help. I cannot overemphasize the looking for help. You know, I've always said, if you think you are addicted,
you probably are.
Don't wait to confirm it. Look for help.
Wanja, as we get ready to wind up here, perhaps you can just, you know, tell us about your life now. I heard Dr. Wale mention a foundation that you're working with. And
yeah. Just before I left the United States, I started a workshop for women. And this workshop, I started it because I realized that women go through so much, and they had a lot. And I have a workshop where women just come and open up and just talk about the issues in their tissues. That's what the theme for the workshop. And I let them open up Actually, it's a very close group. We don't let whatever is discussed there. Actually, we have to sign a disclaimer that whatever we discuss there doesn't go outside of there. And this workshop doesn't have speakers. We all heal each other. We come in to heal each other. And I found that it was a very powerful thing that I was doing, because I saw that women were really discovering things that they didn't even know. So I know addiction is there and alcohol is there, but I felt more drawn to dealing with the issues that women go through. And so right now I have started a home. It's in Ruaka. And in this home, it's actually community-based, where women can come in if they're getting abused, if they're being molested, if they're going through just stuff, even if they're going through the drinking. A place they can come. You know, the United States is good because they have shelters where people run to. And a place where you're not being judged, a place where you're not being condemned. And God has just led me to do this thing for women in a Christian way, because first you have to heal the emotions. Sometimes there are things that women have gone through that if you tell them something about God, they'll be like, you know what, if God allowed it, I don't know who God is. I don't want to hear about God. I don't want to know about God. So you have to deal with the emotions first and then introduce God to them again. And so what I'm going to be doing in this center is that I'm going to be bringing in women. We deal with the issues that are going on inside of them and then introduce God. At the end of the day, the goal is to win them for Christ, because I know the only thing that has worked for me is knowing God and knowing Jesus Christ as my Lord and personal Savior, because you cannot do it any other way. Because honestly, I know it's a disease, but for the most part, it's also very demonic. Drinking is very demonic. Because all these hallucinations that you get when you're getting over the withdrawals, they are all demonic. It's like all these things coming to kill you. So I find it very spiritual. It's a spiritual battle that you're going through when you're getting out of addiction. Because the devil doesn't want you to get out of there. He wants to kill you before you can get out.
And finally, how is it that people can reach you or get in touch with you to know more about your center, about you, about your work?
I don't mind them calling me, and I don't mind them getting I have a Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I have a page called I Am My Sister Workshop, and I also I'm on Twitter, and also my phone number. I can always give.
And if they reach out to us, we can always.
So perhaps you can share your social media handles as well.
Wale Akinyemi resource page on Facebook, and then my Twitter is at Wale Akinyemi.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much to both of you for being here. It's been a very inspirational discussion, and I know for a fact that you have changed someone's life who's listened to your story today. Wanja, thank you for being brave and for sharing. And Dr. Wale, as always, a pleasure. Thanks so much for watching Power Breakfast this morning. We're going to wind up the show with a little bit of music from Carlos Kiba and the band.